Oh, here we go. Okay, this is AOC. AOC. Remember, people, we either have standards or we don't, or we have double standards, or we're just liars. This video made the rounds yesterday. 2.6 million views.
Illegitimate! Illegitimate!
This. Oh, hold on a second.
Illegitimate! Into the streets! Illegitimate! 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 Into the streets! 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 Illegitimate!
Still on mute. This decision, illegitimate. This decision from the Supreme Court of the United States, not wrong, not immoral, not legally untenable, illegitimate. Illegitimate. The product of one of the branches of government is illegitimate. Some people have pointed out the hypocrisy that this is somewhat hypocritical coming from the individuals who want to criminalize calling another process of another function of government illegitimate. That of course is legitimate. It's so legitimate you can't even talk about it. Hashtag no election fornication advice. It's so legitimate, it should be criminalized to question it. But this, illegitimate. A decision coming down, this one was 5-4. It was the Second Amendment that was 6-3. Coming down, months and months of thoughtful analysis. Anybody who read the decision, it goes into the details of the jurisprudence, the history. This thought out decision rendered by 5 duly appointed, but they're all duly appointed, but rendered by 5 duly appointed Supreme Court justices who went through the confirmation hearing process, who were appointed in accordance with all of the, I don't even know if it's constitutional requirements, illegitimate. That's fine. Call that illegitimate. Absolutely fine. As we're going to see, Maxine Waters coming out and calling people to not respect this decision. I think there was also like a tweet from the Justice Department. Oh, no, that was under the Second Amendment one. We'll talk about that tomorrow. There was a tweet, I think, from the Justice Department saying they have no intention of respecting the Second Amendment decision. I'm not sure if that was a real tweet. So if that's not the case, please, someone in the chat correct me. Illegitimate in the streets. And by the way, like if I'm reading a little bit into, if I'm reading body language and I'm not an expert, I look back at my older videos and I can tell based on my eyes and my positioning when I felt uncomfortable or unsure of myself. I get the feeling right here, AOC looks a little uncomfortable and a little unsure of herself. But if
Illegitimate! Illegitimate! Illegitimate!
so anyways, I think she looks a little uncomfortable, but she's out there in the streets protesting that the decision is illegitimate. And presumably, if the decision is illegitimate, one does not abide by illegitimate decisions any more than one respects illegitimate high school elections. What is it called in high school? You know what I mean. Presumably, if it's illegitimate, you don't have to respect it. And people called her out for that. But then she sounds, wait until you hear Maxine Waters. So people were making that joke and she responded. I say people were making that joke, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. I want to bring this up because it's fun to watch the argument. You can watch people argue and then you could say, who has made the better point? Illegitimate. The fruits of the judicial branch of government's laborious efforts, illegitimate. And here's one of the cases where I think, people can conveniently ignore hyperbole and try to take things literally when they know that it's not meant to be literally, but rather figuratively speaking, comparative for the purposes of elucidating hypocrisy. AOC just launched an insurrection. Any violence and rioting is a direct result of Democrat march. You know what? I take this back. This is a legitimate point. This is a legitimate point. But I take it back. This insurrection, that might have been the hyperbolic description, but this is a point that I have been making. Therefore, I'll say that I made it before Marjorie Taylor Greene, so that no one's Viva alt-right, inspired by extremist Marjorie Taylor Greene. I said this when Elizabeth Warren comes out and calls 6 justices of the Supreme Court of the United States extremists. I think I have that tweet in the background. What do you think this type of rhetoric does? I mean, I was just saying before we read this, it will certainly incite people to not respect an illegitimate decision, in theory. But we've seen what has happened over the last 3 weeks. I don't know. I don't remember when the decision was leaked. It was a month ago, I think. Leaking the decision, protesting unlawfully on the front line of, it was Kavanaugh's house? Kavanaugh. Protesting unlawfully, I forget the provision of the United States Code, picketing or parading on the lawn of a judge for the purposes of influencing a pending court matter. Federal law violation. Then it got even worse. It got even worse, and then you, what's the word I'm looking for? Radio silence from Joe Biden. Radio silence from Press Secretary Jean-Pierre. And I don't know if it was, no, it was Press Secretary Psaki at the time. No commentating, no condemning the illegal protests on the front lawn of Kavanaugh. They actually said they support the protest so long as it remains peaceful. You can break the law so long as it remains peaceful, as though conceptually and legally breaking the law itself is not a form of legal violence. Then the individual who was out there purportedly attempting to take the life of Kavanaugh. No condemnation. What you get now is AOC, illegitimate. Elizabeth Warren, extremists on the bench, 6 extremists. I mean, imagine calling a president illegitimate is foreboding, but calling 6 Supreme Court justices extremists with the dog whistles that will ring in the minds of those who now think they have been given the political permission slip to act on those words. Marjorie Taylor Greene says AOC just launched an insurrection. Any violence and rioting is a direct result of Democrat marching orders. Okay, let's hear the retort, people. We've been demonetized. That's fine. Request. Okay. We cannot not present the counter argument. And then among us, we shall decide who has made the better points. That's right. It was up here. Come on. AOC. I will explain this to you slowly. By the way, loserthink. Hashtag first element of loserthink, ad hominem. I'll explain this to you slowly. I'm sorry, AOC, are you suggesting that Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene is slow? There's a word in French to describe slow, and that word now gets you canceled. So are you, what? Hey, AOC, are you calling her the R word? Are you suggesting that Marjorie Taylor Greene is the R word? Because that gets you canceled. I will explain this to you slowly, because you loser think, okay? Not substantive, not dealing with any issue, ad hominem attack, undermining the intelligence of the interlocutor. Exercising our rights to protest is not obstruction of Congress. True, they're not the same thing. Nor was anyone saying no one was suggesting there would be obstruction of Congress, nor an attempt to overturn democracy. Let's break this down. Exercising our rights to protest is not obstruction of Congress. True. You know what that's called, people? That's called a straw man. Marjorie Taylor Greene was not suggesting that their protesting, calling this decision illegitimate, was obstruction of Congress. What Marjorie Taylor Greene said is that if it leads to riots and violence, then it's as a result of your inciting that rioting and violence. That's what she said. So false analogy, straw manning, and evading the actual point, which is if anybody feels empowered now to riot, destroy property, cause violence, because that decision is illegitimate and hell or high water, they now get to act on that bullhorn, calling this illegitimate, calling those justices extremists. Wait until you hear what Maxine Waters had to say. I'm not sure that if we apply the same standard of reasoning, when Trump said march peacefully to the Capitol, that was inciting well, actually I almost pulled the Chuck Schumer on purpose by accident. That was inciting the insurrection. If that is true for that, well, this is 10 times more inciting people to go out and do worse things. Nor is it an attempt to overturn democracy. If one were heinous enough to do that, they'd seek a pardon for it too. This is another element of loserthink, which is bring in other issues, divide and distract, or distract and conquer. Because if we're talking about people seeking pardons, well, my goodness, does that apply to both sides of the aisle? But only one of us here did that, and it ain't me. That's true. I guess only one of you was out there. I don't think that Marjorie Taylor Greene called for anyone to overturn democracy. And yeah, interesting. So we've heard both points. Having seen the rhetoric of those who are angry with the decision out there, I think I know which argument won here. But hold on, let's do this. Let's do this. We have a poll function for a reason, people. We have a poll function. We'll call it the poll vault. We're gonna enter the poll vault. Okay. Who won the exchange? Oh, wait a minute, I gotta do this here. Let's just go. Hold on, give me a second. I don't often do this. Who won the exchange? AOC, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Add option. Just show results. You know, that'll confuse people. I won't do an acronym. Just show results. Let's see. Who won the exchange? AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene? Let's see. Okay, remove that. But don't worry, by the way, people. It gets even worse than AOC's calling it illegitimate. Maxine Waters, man. If there's anybody out there, get in their faces and harass them. That's fine. March peacefully and fight for your country. That's insurrection. And by the way, I'm not even saying that they're both equivalent. I think they are not equivalent, and they should be treated differently. And I think that nothing in what Trump said in his speech could reasonably have been perceived as a dog whistle call to insurrection, except in those who already wanted to hear it. Ray Epps might be looking your way here. I don't think there was anything in his speech that was a call to violence. Get in their faces and harass them is literally a call to violence. So I'm not treating them as equal. They're not equal. I think one is much worse than the other. And yet the one that I think is less worse than the other is getting treated exponentially worse than the one which is actually bad. But I don't expect political consistency from anyone anymore once the ideological blinders have been put on and adjusted.